Hey everyone! I, I know this is a gaming channel, but I really wanted to talk about Black Panther Day. I mean, I have to. This movie was so good, and it's a cultural event. It was a cultural event this year. So Black Panther, I've seen it like 3 times, and it's been good all 3 of those times. And as I mentioned, this movie is a cultural event. It has shattered records. I think it's almost at 900 million worldwide right now. It's probably going to break that by the end of the day. It's probably going to be into the 900s. And it made 63 million over this weekend, which is pretty astounding for a movie in its third weekend. Yeah. The first time I saw it was on February 15th, that Thursday night at 7 p.m. in that very first showing. And black people showed out in the theater, man. It was nothing. It was mostly black people and all black or an African guard. And they even had somebody cosplaying as Black Panther, and people were taking pictures with him against a backdrop. That was pretty cool. I would have taken it with him too, but I was thinking I was gonna get a good seat if I waited in line for that. But yeah, this movie is so spectacular, and I'm going to be going heavy into details here. So this is spoiler warning, as you see in the title of the video. So about Black Panther, it opens up with some history of Wakanda. We see the vibranium meteor had crashed into Africa about thousands of years ago, and 5 tribes had settled around that vibranium mound and created what would become Wakanda. And we see how the Jabari tribe, they were the one who isolated themselves from the rest of the tribes, but they were still in Wakanda. And we saw how the world sort of changed around Wakanda while Wakanda was advancing themselves. We saw some World War II imagery and some of the chattel slavery that was going on. And it's all done in this beautiful CGI sand work, sand imagery. And so the first opening scene that drives the plot takes place in 1992 in Oakland, California. Now, I wasn't really expecting this at all. I was like, oh man, this is almost like a different movie, but I was feeling it. And so we see the first scene with these children playing in the basketball court, and then go into the apartment room where these 2 guys are stashing guns and plotting something, probably a heist or something, or whatever. When these 2 Dora Milaje knock on their door. And then once they come in, they bang on their spears and the lights go out, right? And then like a couple seconds later, the lights come back on, and you just see the T'Chaka in the Black Panther suit standing right there. That got a gas from my theater on the first time. And actually, my theater was pretty lit by most of the movie, actually. And so we basically see the driving point of the plot here. So King T'Chaka's brother, he was helping out Claw get out vibranium out of the country, and his friend who was helping him, who he thought was American, was actually Wakandan, and he revealed himself to the king and himself. And out of his own anger, he tried to shoot him, but T'Chaka killed his brother in order to save Zuri. Now, on the first viewing, I ain't seen nothing wrong with the scene, but after reading some stuff online after second viewing, I did see that the death was probably unnecessary. As you saw in the movie, you could see that he did actually remove the gun from him before he stabbed him with the claws. So he really had no point to do it at that moment. It would have probably been a little bit better if they wanted to kill him, like have him struggle with his brother with the gun as he was trying to shoot Zuri, and then he accidentally shoots his own brother in that struggle. But at the same time, T'Chaka, since he was the Black Panther, it means he had the strength of the Black Panther in him, so he would have been too strong in order to try to struggle with his brother. But that's just a small thing, ain't really a big flaw for me. And I also want to emphasize the cast of this movie. The cast of this movie is great. And I did not know this until later on, but the guy who plays young T'Chaka is actually the son of the guy who plays the older T'Chaka that was in Civil War and then flashbacks in this movie. Oh, I forgot his name, but whenever their father and son actually in real life, so that was pretty cool to see them. And then they have Denzel, Whitaker play Forrest Whitaker, the young Forrest Whitaker, and they do actually look a little bit alike, but they're not actually related. Well, they think they are anyway, but considering they have a little bit of similarities and they probably are related. And for the cast, I think Chadwick Boseman, he's like a breath of fresh air compared to other MCU heroes like Tony Stark, Peter Quill, um, Spider-Man, Doctor Strange. They're all kind of quippy characters. They like to make a lot of jokes, but T'Challa's more stoic and reserved because his upbringing in Wakanda puts a lot of responsibility on him. So he's not as, I guess you say, funny as the rest of the guys, but he doesn't have to be. And in addition to that, I also like the women in this movie. The women in this movie represent a lot. And so Lupita plays Nakia, who was T'Challa's ex-girlfriend. And in one of the beginning parts of the movie, we see T'Challa go and get her in order to let him know that his father died and he's about to be crowned king. And when he first sees her, he just freezes in all her beauty, which is a very important part because you don't really see black women be looked at so stunningly. Sorry, that's a poor choice of words. Be looked at like that really in movies, because if you notice, like probably 8 or 9 times out of 10 in movies and TV shows, the love interest is always a light skinned or mixed black girl. You hardly ever see dark skinned women really be love interests in movies. Dark-skinned women in general are repping in this movie. Dark-skinned people in general are repping in this movie. And you also have Danai Gurira, who I know as Michonne from The Walking Dead, play as Okoye, who's the general of the Dora Milaje, which is the Black Panther's bodyguards. In the comic books, the Dora Milaje, they were also, in addition to being bodyguards, they're also trained to be the wives of the king. Or at least one of them will end up being the wife of the king. But in the comics, actually, T'Challa is not really interested in marrying any of them. So they push out some of that, maybe that problematic stuff behind. And I think his father wasn't either, because I know Ramonda, she's from outside of Wakanda. I'm not sure if that's true for the movie, but at least in the comic book, she's from outside of Wakanda. And in addition to Okoye's character, she is a definite badass in this movie, man. Every time she comes on screen in that first fight in the casino, she is tearing up some tail up in that. And the best part of this, during that fight, you see her throwing her wig off at the white guy. And my audience was pretty clapping at this scene. They were hollering, clapping. And I saw another YouTube review mention something like this, made a metaphor, a comparison about this, like, when she threw off her wig at the white guy to use it as a weapon. That's sort of symbolic of her, like, throwing away the oppressive, some of the oppressive beauty standards that white people instill on black people, like, across the world. And I don't think that's that far-fetched comparison or metaphor to make, because if you see in that beginning part of the movie, she's sort of bothered that she has to wear this wig to stay undercover in this casino. Because, you know, Wakanda is a nation that never been colonized or conquered. Everybody there wears their hair natural. And the Dora Milaje in particular, they have to shave. Once you become a Dora Milaje, you shave your head. It's part of the ceremony. And she saw it as a disgrace. So, yeah, I don't think that the metaphor is really far-fetched out there. In addition to that scene, it's just really amazing to watch her go to work, and the music that comes on also helps sells it too. And her dress when she jumps off the banister and down to the first floor, it's really cool. Her dress flows sort of like a cape, like Superman's cape, a bit. And also in this scene that's noticeable is what everybody's wearing that scene. Nakia is wearing green, while Okoye is wearing red, and T'Challa is wearing black, of course, since he's the Black Panther. And these are also all three of the colors that you see in Pan-African flags, which is a little nice touch given from Ryan Coogler, or probably better yet, Ruthie Carter, who did the costume designs in this movie. Now she deserves all the credit for the costumes in this movie. There's some really amazing stuff here. I know she did a lot of studying, went to African countries and whatnot to do her research for these costumes, and paid pretty good faith to them and respect to how they're represented. And a couple of my favorite costumes in here is probably Lupita's like green jumpsuit when they're walking around the streets of Wakanda, and then Shuri's jacket at the final scene of the movie. That shit was fresh. And probably in addition to talking about Shuri, she's actually another standout in this movie as well. She's the princess of Wakanda, T'Challa's little brother, and she is so funny. Like almost every line she says had the audience rolling, and me too. So the part that I think was probably stand out the most was that "what are those" line, where she was looking at his shoes, talking about his sneaker game, his shoe game. That was pretty dope as well. Another character that's pretty important here is Killmonger as well. So Killmonger, he grew up in the streets of Oakland. It was revealed in a really good way, I think, when T'Challa was talking to Zuri about the deeds that his father and his uncle did, and he cut away to the child when he asked us about what happened to the child, and we see it was one of those little boys that was playing basketball in the beginning of the movie. So after his uncle died for helping Claw get the vibranium because he wanted to help black people around the world to get free of their oppressors, they left the little boy there and the body of T'Chaka's brother there, which I think was pretty damn dirty. Around and basically, Eric grew up probably with his mother. I don't know, they don't really mention her, but he grew up being resentful of T'Chaka and the Kingdom of Wakanda because of that. And then he also went into the army as well, which sort of made him more aggressive as well and resentful as well. He's probably a little unhinged as well because during the scene where he's has a shootout with Claw, he shows that the scars on his body. He makes each scar for each kill he racked up, which is sort of psychotic. People who usually mark themselves like that for kills are usually like serial killers, like Mr. Zsasz from the Batman mythology, from the Batman comics. But yeah, Eric Killmonger was a really great villain in my opinion. Probably the best villain that the MCU has. People really like to clamor up Loki so much, but nah. Killmonger, the best villain the MCU has as of this moment right now. And it's really because he's so relatable. You understand his struggle. He's been hurt since he's been growing up in poverty in Oakland, California, with crime-driven neighborhoods, seeing black people being wrongly incarcerated and shot down. And then when he was in the army and the military or whatever, he went across seas and also had to kill people, people that looked like himself in Africa as well. So he saw impoverishment. He saw the impoverishment of black people across the world, and it filled him with resentment and wanting to get black people to rise up and sort of reclaim some of the things that they were owed. So, yeah, he's definitely a relatable villain, and honestly, I wouldn't have been mad if actually Killmonger won, because I'm sort of curious about what the state of the situation would have been in the world if he had succeeded. But I'm fine with the end result anyway with T'Challa. And for the other villain with Claw was sort of a cheesy villain. I wasn't too mad that he died because he was a little on the cheesy side. But his mixtape joke that was pretty damn funny in my opinion. And in mention of that, they do put a few black jokes in there that a lot of black people will get, like that mixtape line, the "what are those," and what else? Oh yeah, that "hey auntie" line. I love that "hey auntie" line. That was pretty cute. The audience loved that shit as well. Wow. The fight choreography of this movie was pretty good too. As I mentioned, the deny scene in the casino was really good. The whole fight scene was pretty dope, and the car chase scene that was pretty good too. A little, yeah, it was pretty dope. And the final battle of the movie, I really like that one as well. It really had a lot of tension around it. You could feel the weight of the situation there. So, oh, and then my favorite part of that when the rhinos busted out, that shit was dope as hell. If I was a little kid, I know I would have loved that like probably 5 times as much as I did in the movie theater. And oh yeah, then you see T'Challa like stop one of them while they're in mid charge. That was pretty dope. And I think it's an Easter egg to the comics because he did the same thing in the comics as well. It actually showed. It was one of the few instances in the movie that they showed T'Challa's strength. Because in the beginning of the movie, as I mentioned, they explain the Black Panther's powers. He got enhanced strength, senses, and whatnot, but they don't really show much of it in the movie. I guess it wasn't really I really need to within the plot. There was that one time in the casino he jumped up really high, and then I guess dragging the car around is another example of his strength. But it's not leaning on too heavily there. It's not a criticism at all. It's just something that I noticed. But yeah, that final battle was pretty dope too. The probably the best part actually is when Wakabi gets off of the Rhino and confronts Okoye, who's like, "Would you kill me, my love?" And she says, "For Wakanda, without question." That was so badass. And then he takes out his blade and it's confident to find her, but he looks out into the battlefield and see that his army is losing to the Dora Milaje and the Jabari tribe. And so he decides to give up, puts down his weapon, and kneels in front of her. And all the other people in his tribe who are still fighting, they're kneeling down as well. And that was such a powerful moment, man. Everybody in my theater was like clapping at that, saying, man, oh man, that was a really great moment. But the only flaw in this fight sequence, I think, is the CGI once T'Challa and Killmonger fall into the pit. It looks sort of weird. I don't know. The CGI is like very obvious in that scene, especially once they land and then the camera gets up close to them. It looks. I don't know. I'm not usually anybody who complains about CGI and stuff like that in movies because it's usually always really good in Marvel movies. I don't really even notice it most of the time, but it was fairly noticeable in this movie and particularly in this sequence. But I still enjoyed the action though. And another great part about all that is the final scene with Eric. Once T'Challa takes him out to the sunset, and that sunset scene is really cool because Eric's last line. So T'Challa says, "Yo, we can still heal you." He's like, "Why? So you can lock me up? Nah, just bury me in the ocean with my ancestors who jumped from slave ships because they knew that death was better than bondage." Now that was a really great line in my opinion. That shit cut me deep the first time I saw it, and it was pretty good on the second and third time as well. Oh man, Eric Killmonger is just a really great character. It's sort of too bad they killed him off, but at the same time, I really like the way that they did it. Some people think he might not be dead since they ain't technically shown them bury him. But yeah, they might have intentionally left that open because they wanted to see what the audience reaction to him was. So they could probably put him down later if they want to. But who knows? He might actually be dead. Oh, something else I forgot to talk about. Oh yeah, the waterfall fight scenes, the ritual combat. Those are some dope fights as well, and I really love the music that comes on called Warrior Falls from the original soundtrack. That music is so it fits so well with the scene. It makes you feel powerful once everybody starts chanting T'Challa's name, and you see everybody standing at the waterfall on the cliffside, drumming and dancing to it. It's just a really cool scene, and the fight choreography is dope as well. Hannah Bleacher, she designed all the production, all the sets for that, so that was really dope as well. Even though on the behind the scenes picture, you see that all that was like mainly CGI, just like the water they were standing on, all that was real, but the actual wall that everybody was standing on, that was entirely CGI. I really couldn't tell though in that situation, but that was really dope. And for that scene, I also want to talk about M'Baku. M'Baku, I was surprised I actually liked more than I did. And a little history for y'all in the comics, actually, M'Baku was sort of ingrained with some racial stereotypes. So in the comics, his name is Man Ape. I'll roll for that. And he wears like a gorilla costume. But with since a black director was on this, and he's also familiar with the comics, he knew not to do that trash. So he's only called by his name, M'Baku, in this. But they kept some of the gorilla related stuff in there, but it's a little more subtle. So his tribe, they do worship a gorilla god, and he wore like this little gorilla mask in the in his fight. But yeah, it was really done in a respectful way and not a racist way. Because if we had a white director, it's probably a 50-50 chance that we would have got him in an ape costume with the name Man Ape. So I'm so glad we didn't. And Baku, he was a really good character in my opinion too, because in the in the end part of the movie, once they go to seek his help and try to give him the heart-shaped herb, it was really funny. And once he starts barking at Martin Freeman's character when he's trying to get a word, and he was like, "Woo, woo, 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 woo." Oh man, I had everybody in the audience dying, man, because he was an outsider. It's like too much in these movies that we have like a white character that comes to a foreign nation and try to instill like he has some authority in their place. But in this situation, he let him know right off the bat, you have no power here, no say so in here. And then his follow up sentence was, "Yo, if not another word, or I'll feed you to my children." And then he follows up with, "Just kidding, we're vegetarians." That was a little cute, funny line as well. And Martin Freeman's character, he wasn't even that important to the plot. He had some importance, but he wasn't too much. He wasn't a white savior character like you get in a lot of these movies. And the funny part with him was in one of the early parts of the movie when he captured Claw. He was like, "Yo, you're lucky you even in here right now." He taps T'Challa on the shoulder like that, and then him and Okoye look at him like, "What the fuck did you just do?" Oh man, that had everybody cracking. I'm cracking up in the theater. Yeah, but Martin Freeman character, he was okay. He didn't have too much to do, as he was an outsider. They had him in the ending part, trying to shoot down the ships, and that was a pretty neat moment. I would have felt for him in that moment too. Actually, the jokes in this movie, they weren't overbearing like they were in some other MCU. Well, mainly Thor Ragnarok, because Thor Ragnarok, they probably went a little bit too heavy on the jokes that they undermined the serious parts of the movie. But in Black Panther, it was just a nice balance of the jokes in this. But I think that's about everything I wanted to say about the movie. Oh, and the end sequence. I really like the end sequence, how it wrapped back up to Oakland in California. And so T'Challa's planning on making some community centers, like some science centers there for Oakland. Is going to remodel the building that his uncle was killed in, and bought the next two buildings around it. So you could tell that well, that's a sign of a good villain for one, from Eric Killmonger. So Killmonger actually impacted him in a way. He made T'Challa realize that Wakanda does owe a responsibility to help the rest of the world, since they're so way ahead of everybody else. So he also was trying to put Lupita on to help her. That science center is also those centers is also gonna help Lupita in her mission to also try to help as many people as she can as well. So that was pretty dope. And as I also mentioned, I really like Shuri's jacket in that scene. That shit is pretty dope. And it was nice to see those little black children be so amazed at the spaceship, because at the beginning of the movie, the children saw the spaceship briefly and not even in its entirety in the clouds, like for a brief few seconds. But here, T'Challa just right out in the open. It's right here in the middle of this basketball court, and these children are going into it. And then this one child walks up to him and asks him who he is, and then he smiles. That was a really great way to end the movie right there. And also, man, those credit sequence, those credit sequences was so beautiful, and with Kendrick Lamar and SZA's All the Stars playing in the background, just oh man, it was just great. And the sand, they brought back the little sand sequences from the beginning of the movie for that part. It was really beautiful to look at. And as for the post credit sequence, the first one is sort of Iron Man-esque, like Iron Man 1-esque, was when he goes to the United Nations and reveals to the world that Wakanda is actually a technologically advanced nation, and that he's planning to help the rest of the world with his technology. And then the second end credit sequence shows basically Bucky waking up and then being called White Wolf and talking to Shuri. And White Wolf in the comics is actually a character that was they adopted, like a white adopted brother of T'Challa's that grew up in Wakanda with them. Instead of doing that weird thing, they decided to probably just give Bucky a new name for that, have him as White Wolf. And I saw some people online shipping Shuri and Bucky with this for whatever reason. And I see some people see some issue with it because they think Shuri's like 16. They never actually say her age in the movie, but there was only allusion to is when M'Baku calling her a child during the waterfall fight sequence. But people in their early 20s get called children all the time. My mom doesn't, but I don't know. She might actually be 16, even though to me she looks like she's about 24, 25, something like that. But yeah, this movie was pretty fucking dope. And on a video game related note, it would be so amazing if we could get a video game with the same level of impact that Black Panther has. Like a video game with a black leader, with a black director, game designer, some producers, and a black composer on it, and black artists. That would be so fucking dope in my opinion. And a game with also with a moderate budget as well, because there are a couple indie games out there that has some black, that's like by black studios, like Orient. I think it's called Legacy of Orion or something like that. It's about it was made from a Cameroon studio. Well, that game is fairly low budget and hardly anybody knows about it. But I really want a game made by black people with a large budget on it. And as you know, myself in like one of my previous videos, that I'm trying to start my own video game, and I mentioned one of my own video game studio. I will start like indie, like just about everybody else has to nowadays, but my goal is to actually have like a AAA studio so I can have video games of that level with black characters in it. Because we have a few games out there with black characters in them, but they're always made by white people or Japanese people, and I just sort of feel funny just having to rely on them for our representation in games, especially since sometimes we get some jacked up stereotypes in these games as well. But it would be really amazing if we get a video game that's so culturally black with like how Black Panther did African culture and African American culture. Like I want a game made by black people that's steeped in Afro American culture and black culture as well. And I say Afro American instead of African American because I just feel weird that we say African American for black people who were born and grew up in America, but we don't call white people European Americans, even though they are descended from people in Europe too. But it's just a little small thing, ain't nothing big. But yeah, it will be really dope if we get that. I might have to be the first one to actually do it. We'll see in a few years if any black game creators out there actually make a large studio and have a game with an enormous budget. But if nobody else is gonna do it, I got to do it myself. I ain't got no problem with that now. But yeah, this movie was really good. I saw it 3 times. My first time was really good. As I mentioned, that the crowd was so damn hype, man. I remember once Killmonger first came on the scene, there was like a couple black girls behind us swooning over him. And then once he was looking at the artifacts in the museum, he was like, when he said, they're so beautiful. And it was like, and so are you, and so are you. Oh, that was pretty funny in my opinion. I don't know. Yeah, they were really swooning over him, and especially when he took off his shirt too, and during his fight scene. But yeah, Black Panther, that was a really good movie. Alright, that's about it. So just hit this like button and subscribe, and I'll see you when I make the next video. Peace.